Okay, we are going to be doing a ranking of Sopranos characters, but we're going to be ranking them, or we're not going to be ranking all of them. We're going to be ranking those who had a confirmed death, shall we say, in the show. So we've got a list of various characters here, not all of whom, as you can see, probably see, uh, died during the course of the show, or were confirmed to have died, as I've said, during the show. And yeah, we're going to be ranking them on the basis of their deaths or how good their deaths were. And the criteria for that is how cinematic their deaths were. To use the great, or to paraphrase the great Patsy Parisi, how much their deaths added to the overall plot of the show, or how important they were to the overall plot of the show, and the emotional and shock value of the deaths is also part of the criteria that I'm using. And as a side note, well, I might add a few side notes throughout, yeah, such as acting, how well acted they scenes were, etc. Yeah. So, with all of that in mind, let's rank the first character who appears on here. And luckily, or not so luckily, for her anyway, it's Adriana Laserva. And I'm going to be putting her death in. Oh, it's A tier, of course it is. Yeah. Um, I think this is one of the, like a lot of people, I think this is one of the best scenes and best episodes of the show. It wouldn't have been as good if they had included the original scene, which was later included in the episode The Ride, I think, where Christopher goes to visit Tony before Adriana's death to inform him of what she had been doing with the feds. Yeah, just the lead up to it as well, the whole telling Christopher, and the whole conflict that Christopher has, and yeah, and Silvio at his most brutal, quite frankly. Yeah, ruthless, horrible, brutal. Yeah. So yeah, cinematic in terms of pulling up in the woods, out in the woods. You can't get much more cinematic than that, really. Yeah, and not expected on the part of the character either. Um, uh, yeah, and obviously shock and emotional value. Obviously, I've sort of gone over that already, and the plot of the show is obviously it's basically makes the Tony and Christopher relationship irredeemable from this point on. Yeah, so yeah, that adds a lot to the plot, and obviously Carmela is haunted by her as well. Yeah, so um, quite a few characters coming up who didn't die. San Severino didn't die. Skip Lispari didn't die. AJ is one of those who I was tempted to create a separate tier for, because there are some theories that he may have died in the final scene, or the final scene represented his death in addition to certain other characters. But yeah, that's sort of a that's sort of not a common theory. Obviously, there's more common theories about the final scene than that. Anyway, um, Annalisa, the boss in Commander Tori, didn't die. Artie Bucco didn't die. Perhaps wishes he did at certain points. I think he did attempt at one point, didn't he? Yeah. Bobby and Sophia, Bacalieri Jr. and Sophia Bacalieri. Um, they didn't die, although again, there may have been points where you know, they don't have an easy life, to say the least. Yeah. Georgie, another one who perhaps wishes he'd been dead at certain points. Barbara Soprano obviously didn't die. Beansy came quite close, of course, but didn't die. Yeah, or again, wishes he perhaps had done. Yep. Um, Penny Fazio, criminal mastermind, didn't die. Blanca didn't die. Which brings us to Bobby Bacala himself. Yeah. This is obviously it's a very cinematic death. He dies in doing what he loves, inspecting a model train, a toy train. Yeah, I'm going to put this in A. Obviously, the shock isn't all that shocking, given that we already know that there's a hit out on him. Emotional, it's probably one of the saddest because, yeah, he's one of the more relatively innocent characters within the mob. And the plot, it obviously culminates. It's sort of one of the main consequences of the long-running plot of the New York War. So yeah, it shows the consequences of New York's and Tony's actions really over the really multiple seasons. Yeah, it even goes as this is sort of yeah. I mean Tony's brother-in-law being killed. Yeah, that does really shows the consequences severely, doesn't it? Yeah. So Carmela didn't die. Who and Mary DeAngelis didn't die. Carmine Senior did die. I think I mentioned this in other videos. His death comes off differently depending on how you're watching it. If you'd been watching it originally when it was originally being aired, there would have been effectively a 2-year difference between the episodes Whitecaps, which he survives, or the hit on him is cancelled basically. And then you wait 2 years, and then he dies of a stroke at a party or a gathering between the guys. But if you're watching that on a binge, subsequently, then it comes off differently. It actually comes off better in the sense that it just seems so deliciously ironic, I would say, because yeah, Johnny Sapp goes to all that trouble in the episode you might have just watched, and yeah, he dies of fairly natural causes anyway. So yeah, not particularly cinematic, is it? Just someone falling over, collapsing at a dinner party or whatever. Emotional, not really. He's not a character. I mean, we don't kind of shed tears much over Carmine Senior, do we generally, most of us, and shocking. It isn't really shocking given his age, I suppose. And but the plot is important, very important to the plot actually. Yeah, this sets off all kinds of events in New York and indeed in New Jersey. Well, not directly in New Jersey, but yeah, Tony B's actions. Well, Tony B wouldn't have got involved with the whole Carmine Junior crew, would he? If Carmine Senior had still been the boss. Yeah, quite obviously. Well, almost certainly wouldn't. Yeah. So I'm going to put this in C. Yeah, because it is important as a death. Yeah. Um, Charmaine Bucco didn't die, obviously. Christopher Moltisanti. Um, I'm going to put this lower than he might. I'm going to put this in B because I do like. Okay, shock value in terms of it happens in the beginning of the episode, Kennedy and Heidi. It doesn't. It isn't that shocking in the sense that we could see this coming for a long time. I guess we didn't know which way it was coming for a long time. Um, Emotional. I mean, it is kind of sad, I suppose. The cinematic. I mean, it's a car crash. I suppose they're always sort of cinematic, aren't they? And yeah. Um, and his uncle's, suffocating him to death. In terms of the plot, I wouldn't say it's funny enough. I wouldn't say it's all that important. Christopher more or less dies in the previous episode anyway. I mean, the previous episode, Walk Like a Man, is more or less the send off to the Christopher character, really. I mean, this is sort of his epilogue in a way, almost as much as it is his death. So yeah, I mean, it's a great scene, but I wouldn't. I don't think it's on the scale as Adriana and Bobby, quite frankly. But yeah. So Davis Scatino doesn't die. Father Phil doesn't die. Hesh. Feach Lamana doesn't die, although obviously that was on Tony's mind at one point, but he kind of takes a better route, I guess, doesn't he? Finded doesn't die. Furio, as far as we know, doesn't die. Ginny Sack doesn't die, although the actress did, I think, like 2 or 3 years after the show ended. Hesh Rabkin doesn't die, although there was a point where he feared that he might die in his final episode. Chasing it. So Jackie Jr. does die. This is going in F. Yeah. It's sort of like Christopher. Actually, we knew that this was coming. We didn't quite know how. Emotional. It's not really sad, is it? Really? I mean, it's sort of sad that he's young and going at this age, but yeah, shocking. Obviously, it isn't shocking. Cinematic. It isn't really at all. Just some guy just pops a bullet in his head as he's walking down the street. Vito, that is, yeah. Um, and the plot. I mean, Jackie Jr. isn't one of these characters who really leaves much of a legacy. And as I've said, his death could be seen coming anyway. The main sort of consequence, I guess, is. I mean, even with Tony and Ralphie, there's not much lingering sort of bitterness over it, is there? That comes with Pyomai, really, doesn't it? Who we'll get to actually. Yeah, the main lingering legacy, and it doesn't last long really, is between Tony and Meadow for the next couple of episodes, couple of 3 episodes. Yeah, so it's this sort of, but even she gets over it, doesn't she? Really, I mean, she doesn't. She's sort of with Finn by the end of that season, and yeah, season 4. So yeah, the worst death so far in this list. Yeah. Um. So Janice doesn't die, nor does Aaron Arkaway. Johnny Cakes doesn't die. Johnny Sack does die. And I'm going to put Johnny Sack in. It's B tier, actually. Oh, yeah. Um, Not cinematic at all. I mean, a guy with cancer dies, quite in a quite horrible kind of way. Very realistic kind of way, actually, yeah. Not cinematic. Um, Emotional. It is very sad, in my opinion. You do feel sort of sorry for him, really. I do anyway. In this episode, anyway. Stage 5. Shocking. You sort of don't see it coming. There is a sort of view that he might, or hope that he might, just keep pulling the strings in prison, or it seems like that might happen. But yeah, we get this cancer diagnosis more or less out of the blue. I say out of the blue, more or less out of the blue, because in the episodes, all due respect, the finale of season 5, we do get a scene where he's having a checkup, and there seems to be some what almost looks like a drip or something behind him. I don't think it is, but yeah, maybe that's a Chekhov's gun or something, or a foreshadowing of the yeah, of his eventual cancer diagnosis. So yeah, and in terms of the plot, it is very important. I mean, obviously, it leads to yet another sort of war within the mob, within the New York, and it leads to Phil Leotardo officially becoming boss. Can't get much more consequential than that, can you? Yeah. So, next character up is another one who also died, which is JT Dolan. He's going mm, C tier, I'd say. Yeah, because it's a shock. It just kind of comes out of the blue. He's just Christopher is having a sort of normal conversation, it seems, and then bullet right through the head. Emotional, no, you don't really give a damn about J.T. Dolan, do you? Or really, or even Christopher much possibly by this point. Although, yeah, still kind of sad in that case, I guess. Cinematic, sort of. I mean, you know, bullet through the head. Ran, just coldly, really coldly, um, out of the blue, sort of as well. Yeah. Um, but in terms of the plot, it's not really important at all, is it? I mean, it wouldn't have mattered if They could have just done the Christopher. They could have just had Christopher going home, after the scene at the Bing, and then have the scene in the next episode with the car crash and him dying. Yeah, it doesn't really matter to the overall plot, really, that whether Christopher killed JT Dolan or not. It was just kind of showed how really down the wow he had gone, really. But yeah, so yeah, a C tier for JT Dolan. So Juliana Schiff didn't die. Um, Junior didn't die, although guess he was sort of dead in some ways by that point. But anyway, yeah. Tony, I did say I'm ranking characters who officially died or were confirmed to have died. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but yeah, I'm not even going. I was going to do like where would I put him if he had visibly gotten a bullet through the head. I'm not going to do all that. Just going to skip over that. Tony, yeah. Um, so, um, little Carmine Junior didn't die. That's an interesting point, actually. He didn't. He didn't seem to be on anyone's hit list, did he? In the whole doing the whole war thing, even though bosses and would-be bosses, various bosses and would-be bosses are on hit lists, do have either unsuccessful and successful whacking attempts, don't they? Yeah, they do. There's been quite a few, yeah. And obviously he's less well regarded than his father. Um, so yeah, less well regarded than Johnny Sack. Yeah, I'm surprised how there wasn't some kind of an attempt. Really, it's sort of funny, but yeah. But anyway, he didn't die anyway. Uh, so next up is Eugene Pontecorvo. This is I'm going to put this in. Mm, it's yeah, I'm low B tier so far. Yeah, it's it's very emotional. You do feel sorry for this guy. Given his family life particularly. His It's shocking. It kind of comes out of nowhere in a way. You don't quite think he's going to do this. Um, Cinematic, kind of. I guess it's that sort of a classic sort of suicide scene. Really, I think it's been done before, that kind of thing. So it's kind of cinematic. But in terms of the plot, no. They could have not even shown or mentioned Eugene again during this whole final season. I mean, no one would have noticed. It's sort of kind of add. I guess the point of it is to add sort of to the theories for the finale. Yeah, which again I won't go into too much, but yeah. But yeah, it has. It's quite a strongly depicted death, really. Yeah, B tier. Uh, Livia. Livia is. This is a difficult one because it's the aftermath of her death that's really good. It's not her actual death is one of the worst, really, in terms of how it sort of plays out. I mean, it's a big character, the biggest character in some ways, other than Tony, of the entire show. Whose death is just mentioned or not mentioned, but it's off screen. Yeah, they had to do this. I think probably most people watching this will know because of the death of Nancy Marchand, the actress who plays Livia Soprano, of course. Um, yeah. Um, so yeah, it's not particularly cinematic at all. Obviously, it's not at all. Really, we don't see it. Um, Shocking? No, not really. She's had health problems. Emotional? you end up feeling vaguely sorry for Tony, I guess. But other than that, no. The plot, in for this season, it does have a major effect on the plot because they were going to do an airline ticket storyline, yeah, which had already been kind of set in motion, and obviously that had to be cancelled. And obviously, it does leave significant emotional scarring on Tony and Janice as well, for that matter. Probably AJ, probably Meadow as well. Um, yeah, and obviously we get Livia sort of surrogates like Gloria and I guess Janice, although Janice had already been introduced, of course, by this point. And certain figures who crop up in Tony's dreams as well, you know. There's that whole thing, yeah. Her sort of shadow or her haunting her shadow is sort of more, if anything, more haunting than the actual character. Well, I guess that's the point of shadows, really, isn't it? Yeah, it sort of lingers over the rest of the series. So yeah, I think because we don't see it, it's got to be C tier only. If yeah, it'd be high if we had been able to see it, but yeah, we couldn't. So yeah. Um. So Meadow doesn't die. Uh, Malfi doesn't die. Cuthberg doesn't die. Um. Jason LaPena doesn't die. Murmur doesn't die. Noah doesn't die. Patsy Parisi doesn't die. Paulie doesn't die somehow, you know, Mr. Nine Lives or whatever. Maybe that's why he hates the cat so much. He sees so much of the cat in himself. But anyway, yeah. Well, so that brings us to Nucci Gualtieri, his mother. And Nucci Gualtieri is going in F tier for her death. Yeah, terms of the plot, other than being sad for Paulie, obviously, yeah, it doesn't have any effect on the plot at all. He had already sort of made up with her, the whole aunt, non-aunt, what's her name? Marianucci, I think. Yeah, I think it's Marianucci. Anyway, his aunt, who was his mother, and then his mother is his aunt, in fact, or however it is, you know. um, well, he was confused as well, wasn't he? Yeah, yeah. But anyway, he makes up that whole thing. He ties up the loose ends, or whatever you want to call it, on that, ties up the loose ends on that particular score, doesn't he? Earlier in the season. So yeah, in terms of plot, she could have survived the rest of the series. It wouldn't have had that much of an impact. Emotional, not really. Kind of a nice woman, I guess. Sorry to hear that about her. Shock value, no, not really. Elderly woman, yes, not really. Cinematic, definitely not. You almost sort of know, you almost sort of don't notice her death. It sort of gets mentioned almost in passing, if you'll excuse the pun, um, when they're all kind of gathered after Maltasanti's death. And yeah, you get a brief sort of glimpse at her funeral where Paul is pissed off. But anyway, but yeah, that's F tier for Nucci Gualtieri. Um, Maria Nucci is her name. That's her full name, isn't it? I think I said. Aunt Dottie, I think. Aunt Dottie is Paulie's real mother. Yeah. Yeah, spent quite a lot of time on that one, didn't I? Yeah. So, Phil Leotardo. Phil Leotardo, the Shah of Iran, is going in high. I'm going to put in high A tier. Now that might be surprise. High B tier. Sorry. Yeah, there's no S tier here. Should have added it, but whatever. Um, yeah, cinematic. Obviously, yeah. I mean, sort of getting your head crushed in by a car, that is sort of cinematic, isn't it? Shot out in public, sort of cinematic. Shock value, not really. It's shocking in terms of how it happened, but not that it did happen. You know, there was a hit out on him. Emotional, no, he was a horrible character, really. We don't even feel sorry, particularly for the wife and kids, really. That's how horrible he is. The plot, it's sort of important. It sort of gets Tony off the hook in the very short term, but perhaps doesn't in the less short term. It might actually lead to his death, possible death in the final scene. So I guess it's important to the plot in that way. But yeah, very good death, and bonus that it's the final confirmed death, the 92nd and final confirmed death of the series. But yeah, not the very best of deaths, actually. So yeah, B tier for the Shah of Iran.